locked me, like full-on carpet burns. I don't have a child, so I wouldn't know. Cry my eyes out and feel really left out. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Storytime Sofa. If you've never seen my face before, then hi, I am Misha, and today I am sweating. I thought wearing a jumper inside when it's like 22 degrees outside would be a good idea. I was very, very wrong. I might actually have to change my top because I am melting. But hello and welcome. Today's story time is going to be a little bit different because it's not to do with me getting silly drunk. It's not actually anything that I've done wrong, technically, this time. So it's going to be all about a psycho babysitter that I have. Definitely don't have. I am 20 years old. I'm no longer babysat when my parents go out. So this was back when I used to live near London, because if you didn't know, I lived near London till I was about 7, and then when we were 7 we moved out of London.
Not wishing to spoil the storyline, because I'm not going to.
Okay.
Just to say, Mama Grimes knew nothing about it. And the person in question was checked by the police. So
makes it sound like we took this to a court case. I know. I'll explain later what that means.
And also, I did not know about it till it was too late. So just add to the mystery of the story. Off you go.
Thanks,
and if you don't subscribe to Mama Grimes, she will link the link. I will put the link up above. Apologies that I'm looking so natural and she's looking so beautiful.
I'm looking so overmade.
It's 22 degrees outside actually. She's in a jumper.
I know.
What was wrong with her?
I'm boiling. I thought it'd be cold in my room. So yes, this was back when we used to live near London, and Mum and Dad both worked like office jobs, so they weren't around to I think it was like pick us up from school or like have us in the evening till like 6 o'clock on weekdays. So Mum employed a babysitter.
No!
What are they called?
Childminder.
Childminder, sorry. Sorry. I don't know the differences. I don't have a child, so I wouldn't know.
Your babysitter was 14 years old and she was a neighbour from 2 doors away.
Oh, okay, my babysitter was a neighbour who was 14 years old from 2 doors away. It's good to hear Mum really looked after me as a child.
No, that was a legal age. That was a legal requirement.
Oh, apparently 14 is the legal age you can babysit. Anyway, back to the childminder.
And her mum was 2 doors away in the house for emergency.
Back to the childminder. So, said childminder, Mum had found, apparently from like the council, so like I think the council recommend childminders. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it was. And said person had some children, and she actually had a daughter who was an in-between age of me and Anya. So Anya is my older sister. She is 2 years older than me, so the daughter must have been 1 year older than me and 1 year younger than Anya. So it was quite good because the mum's thinking, well, when the childminder's looking after them, Anya and Misha have her daughter to also make friends with and play with. So I think we saw her for quite a long time, and I think we started seeing her when we were quite young. One thing I definitely recall was that Mum used to make us food, because Mum was one of those mums that wanted her children to be mega healthy. So she used, Dad jokes, used to give us like salmon, which obviously 6-year-old Misha and 8-year-old Anya refused to eat, but the babysitter never told Mum, sorry, childminder, never told Mum, and apparently she used to eat the food herself and pretend that we'd eaten it. And we'd actually eat like chicken nuggets. I think Mum used to make us like soups and salads, and I mean that's quite light-hearted, that's quite funny. But again, Mum never knew about any of this. But then it wasn't actually probably until about 10 years ago when me and Anya told Mum about this. We stopped seeing that babysitter when we moved away, because we moved when I was 7. So I think we were probably seeing her for a good few years when I was younger and Anya was younger. So the only reason we stopped seeing her was because we moved. But I don't think it was until we were about maybe 15 that me and Anya just randomly realised that we'd never really told Mum the true extent of this childminder. Yeah. So I remember that we used to go to her house. It wasn't like she came and babysat. She literally did mind the children. So we used to go to hers. Now, I do recall, randomly, there was a really huge dog in the next door neighbour's house that used to stick its head through the fence, and I used to be petrified of said dog. That will come later on into the story time, don't worry. So, I'm obviously not going to give names, because I mean, theoretically they could actually be watching this. I don't know, who knows. But let's take it back. And to say, as young children, we did not realise this was wrong, or at least we thought it was wrong, but you know when you're too scared of authority, you do nothing about it. Which is really, really worrying, because, like, it could have been so much more sinister than it was. But, ultimately, the childminder's daughter preferred Anya, because Anya was the older sister. So I feel like when you're little, you always want to be with the older people. That's just like a thing, isn't it? So we used to go round to the house, and her daughter would only want to play with Anya. She wouldn't want to play with me, and her mum wouldn't tell her that she can't leave me out. And Anya was so scared that Anya never kicked off. I remember Anya always used to try and get me involved and hold my hand and everything like that, but her daughter was not having any of it and just didn't want me involved. I remember that the mum used to actually make it worse, and I remember I used to get locked in rooms by myself so that Anya and her daughter could play. And it was like, the daughter couldn't be friends with both of us. She had to be friends with one of us. It wasn't like there was two options. It was one or the other. So I think Anya actually, bless her soul, used to try and make her daughter not like her, so that then she would start playing with me. How selfless. How things change. I'm joking. So I didn't completely cry my eyes out and feel really left out. Obviously the mum did absolutely nothing about this, which, I mean, if that was my child, I would definitely do something about this. But it got a lot worse. Like, a lot worse. I'm probably even forgetting half the storylines because I was quite young that I don't really remember it. But there is one time that I remember that basically, when we used to need the toilet, we weren't allowed to just go to the toilet. We had to ask to go to the toilet, and because we were so scared of our babysitter, we never wanted to ask, which is completely ridiculous. Like, I understand that you need to teach children that, like, if they're at school, that they have to go and ask to go to the toilet. But if you're technically supposed to be in your own home, and I do think that's what childminders are supposed to make it feel like that is their child's home when they're there, then, like, why was I not allowed to just go to the toilet? Like, what? But of course, again, didn't realise. Also, me and Anya were never allowed to go to the toilet at the same time, because we used to try and sneak in together so we could talk about things, but she wouldn't let us. One of us had to stand outside with her because we weren't allowed. Honestly, it was like a military operation, but horrendous. Also, I recall that me and Anya never wanted to stay over, and Mum could never understand why we never wanted to go for sleepovers with her daughter. But this was obviously just our way of not going and putting ourselves through it, but also not telling Mum, because we were just too petrified what the childminder would do if she found out. Then I think the worst case was when her daughter was again favouring Anya, and she didn't want me there. She did not want me there. So her mum, my childminder, locked me outside in the garden. She was like, Misha, go play outside by yourself. The girls don't want you here. Her mum locked me outside. I literally remember trying to pull the door, and the mum is literally looking out to me from the kitchen, and I'm trying to the door and she won't let me in. They were literally, I think she left me out there for a good long period of time, bearing in mind this huge massive dog was next door, and it could basically climb over into the garden. And like, I'm a very small little 6-year-old girl, and this dog was like, you know, one of those human-sized dogs. So I was absolutely petrified. I needed the toilet. I remember I kept on tapping on the window, being like, please can I go to the toilet, please can I go to the toilet, I really need the toilet, please can I go to the toilet. She wouldn't let me. So 6-year-old Misha wet herself out in the garden because her babysitter, childminder, would not let her go to the toilet and wouldn't let her in the house. I then think eventually Anya and her daughter stopped playing their game. I keep on nearly accidentally saying her daughter's name, which doesn't really matter because you guys aren't going to know who it is, but I still just feel like it's a little bit dodgy. Now, I don't know why we never said anything. I don't recall her ever saying anything like, don't tell your mum. But maybe she did. I've just blanked that out because I don't remember. But yeah, we didn't even realise how wrong it was until one day me and Anya just started discussing it and we were like, what the hell? And then we told mum. But even, I think we went back to where we used to live, we were just passing, and we passed them in the street and we said hello to them and blah 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 blah. And even then, this was before we told mum, even then I still didn't realise how wrong it was. Mum always knew that we just wasn't really a fan of her and we just were a bit freaked out by her, but mum just thought we just didn't like her. There was no reasoning behind it, because we gave mum no reason to ever think that there was a reasoning behind it. So yeah, it's honestly petrifying to think about how much we lied to mum and just didn't tell her that we did not like the woman, that we didn't feel safe, that we weren't happy there. But I don't know if it was just me and Anya. I don't know if it was just because it was me and she didn't like me. I honestly don't know. But Anya also went through the turmoil of it all. And like, I know baby sisters have probably done much worse, but it is horrendous to see what they can get away with. And mum obviously had absolutely no idea. So mum really is not to blame here. She did all the checks. I remember she used to ask us how we were and how everything was, but we just said we were fine. So I feel like if you are in a situation, I feel like this works throughout life. If you are in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, where you don't like what's going on, and someone is telling you not to tell people or anything like that, tell someone who cares about you, tell someone that you can trust, because you might not just realise how wrong how they're treating you or what is going on is. Because I didn't realise until I was like 15 that the way that the babysitter treated us was horrendous. I went through blooming 13 more years of my life, not 13, 8 more years of my life not even realising that the babysitter had done anything wrong. And oh, it's just a horrible situation. I know that the woman does no longer do babysitting. I know her daughter is grown up. She's a year older than me, so she's 21 right now. And I feel like her daughter probably doesn't even realise what she also helped in doing. But I feel like it's difficult because you can't really blame the daughter because the mum was there through all of it, watching all of it happen and encouraging it. I even think I remember once the daughter had me on the carpet and was like pulling me across the carpet, and I had like full-on carpet burns, and I'm pretty sure I told mum that it was like a game that we were playing. Honestly, absolutely petrifying. But yeah, so if you do have something that you feel is wrong, it most probably could be, so speak to someone about it. And yeah, luckily we weren't harmed in this situation. It was a little bit mentally scarring, but I've kind of just completely forgotten about it and blanked it out of my head. But yeah, be careful out there. There's some very, very strange people on this planet, and they're not good people. So yeah, no. A weird one, isn't it? I feel like a lot of people are probably going to have similar stories to this, which is worrying, but just gotta hope that this happens less and less. I'm honestly not even sure. I know obviously now with different review sites and things like that probably didn't exist back then. Hopefully it stops things like this happening. But yeah, that is kind of the end of this story time. It's not mega like informative or anything like that. It's just, again, sharing a story of a screwed up situation that I think a lot of people have probably been through and didn't even realise. But yeah, I would say I hope you guys enjoyed, but it's not really the sort of one that you would enjoy, but I hope it's been informative in some way. Maybe you've related to it in ways you didn't think that you would, and hopefully you can use this as like an outline of what you could do, or what you should do, not what you could do because we didn't do anything about it, in like real life, in adult life, in school life, in everything. So yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know any other story times that you would like me to do, because of course I can. And yeah, toodle pip guys, love you lots, and see you all next time. Bye.